to see if my little guy is going to work for me so that I don't have to stand over there. So, getting started out today, I just want to do a quick review because like Annette had mentioned, we've already done the training on strengths discovery and on futures planning as well as the introduction to TIP. So most of you guys have had those, some of you have not. So I'm just going to do, it's quick. Those are 2 full day trainings, so, but I want to at least hit on it so you guys have a frame of reference. A refresher for those who have had it and just kind of a frame of reference for those who haven't. So, I'm trying to think, there's one more thing I wanted to jump into beforehand. Yeah, I want to write a couple definitions up on the board because the slides that I have are from the trainer, and they use a couple different wording than we do, so I want to make sure that we are on the same page. Like, you'll see in some of the slides, it's going to say, let me know if I spell it wrong, because that's not my screen. Okay. I know that the team at FRC's got my back for sure, because that's what I always do at my computer. I'll be like, guys, yell a word out, and then the 2 of them say it for me, so I really appreciate that. So transition facilitator, or TF, what that means in our world is skills trainer. The other one, mostly only see it in initials, so I'm just going to do that. EBD, which means here's the big one for me. Which for us is our SED. Okay, seriously emotion disturbed. Okay, and the last one, which I think most of you are familiar with, but just in case, LCD. $0 to the person who can tell me what TIP stands for.
Must not be the 5.
Stands for 5. I'll put it in your check this next week. That's right. So transition. I have to write this one all the time. So. Okay, so I just wanted to put those out there because you will see them in the slides, and I wanted to make sure we're on the same page with what they mean. Okay, so TIP, transition and independence process, a little cheat sheet I had going on right here for you. Really it's a process to help engage youth in their own futures. And that's actually right there, if you stop right there, that's why it works. Because we're engaging them in their own futures. And when the focus is on the youth and their futures, one, they're more amped to want to participate and engage. It's very directly related to their lives. You know, I want to go to school after high school, and I'm having a hard time even staying in school. You know, so for us to come and say, here's some steps how you can do that. And really, they're, oh wait, well, hold on a second. You know what I mean? Especially if it's coming from them, helping them explore what those options are, not us just telling them. That's the key there. We'll get into that. So I'm just going to read the actual definition because I think it's important. The transition independence process is a system that helps engage youth in their own future planning process, provides them with services and supports, and involves them and others in the process that prepares and facilitates greater self-sufficiency and successful achievement of goals related to each transition domain. What in this definition sticks out to you?
Including other support.
What's that?
Including others.
Including other supports. What about that stands out?
Relating them up because a lot of things don't have anybody around them. And you know what people that they have, that they may not know.
Yeah, absolutely. Hook them up to the people in their lives that they have. They might not know they have. Jeannie, did you have something?
The system.
The system.
That stands out to me, that it's a system.
Yeah. Tell me about, like,
I want to know what are the components of the system. If
Yeah.
everyone understands the system, then we can all do the same thing and it'll work.
exactly. Exactly. I think that's really important because best way I can explain it is that there's a lot of formal processes that we know, right? here's the process, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right? And then there's a lot of us that have a lot of skills that we bring, and we can almost accidentally do the right thing in helping youth, right? Because we kind of know how to work with youth. So us just being around them will probably do some positive things. And so that's the informal, right? TIP falls right in the middle. And that's why I think where sometimes it gets a little bit more confusing. But there is a system, and there is a method, and that's why we want to have these trainings. So I want to do some follow-up, those kinds of pieces, because as anything new, especially system-wise, that we're going to utilize, we need to practice it. We have the information, and then we need to practice it. So that was, thank you for bringing that piece out. What else stands out to people in this?
Self-sufficiency stands out to me.
Yeah, tell me a little more about that.
Well, because the point of what we're doing here is not for us to do something for them, but for them to learn the skills to do it themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. We will not always be in their lives. Even by law, we cannot always be in their lives, right? Eventually, they will transition out of our program, and they will need to be self-sufficient and connected to that system like Roxy pulled out of support, because that's what's going to end up being there for them. So, excellent. One more. What's one more person? Something that stands out.
Their own.
Their own futures planning. Tell me a little more about that.
Well, I know, I haven't done the opportunity, but I know that I thought what was cool about it is that it's their own meeting. If they want something on that plan, even if you don't think it's realistic, in the beginning, it goes on the plan, it's their plan.
Yeah.
And then you work with them around it.
Yep. Yep. Very youth-driven. Very youth-driven. And that feeds into a lot of it. One, it feeds into the engagement piece. Two, it feeds into that self-sufficiency, right? Then also it teaches them all these other skills that we're learning, like problem solving, right? Thinking rationally, rationalizations of like, if I do this, then we're going to get that in a minute. Then this is the most likely outcome. So it really teaches that self-sufficiency by letting it be theirs that they're driving it, right? And you're supporting them through there. Where are we going to next? Okay. So we get back into some of the reasons why our green here, okay, yeah, it's not cut off. So our SED, our EBD, as it says on here, dropout rates, 58%. I think this was done. It's about time to redo it again. I was at the year off, but I think it's 2007 or something, right in there. So you see the incredibly higher rate of dropouts in youth that are experiencing an emotional behavior disturbance. Incredibly, well, a lower rate for employment, lower rate for post-secondary, big gap there. Being able to live independently is pretty low, and their arrest rates are a lot higher. So, as we know these kind of statistics, specifically the youth we're working with, right, that struggle in these different areas. These are just some of them. And so, the reason that TIP is important, if I can get the right button. Before I go there, actually, is the other thing, a reason that TIPS exists is because they started looking at our systems, and they started looking at how you see here in child mental health, you know, there was this hard line at 18. Now, some of this has changed over this little bit of time, but a very hard line at 18. Well, even in our own system, 21, right? We do a really good job about referring them out, starting working with other agencies, and so some of this is beginning to go the right direction. But I want to give you a little bit of the background. When they started looking into putting the TIP process together, they were looking at our system and they were saying, you know, this transition age youth are falling through the cracks. Because as soon as they hit 18, now they got to go engage in another system. And they might not know the person. They don't want to go because, you know, now they're independent and, you know, I want to move on. That's what I did when I was a kid. These kinds of things. And so having a process where you're already talking to the youth before they get to that part about, you know, their futures helps us to know what kind of supports, either in the system supports or family supports, we need to have them hooked up to before, you know, they age out or before they no longer are eligible for the programming that we're doing. So you're going to hear today a little bit about the transition domain. It's one of the focuses of the trainings that we have already had, but it's an important thing to have a base line for. So the different transition domains in TIP: employment, career, educational opportunity, living situation, community life functioning, and personal effectiveness and well-being. These are the different areas that when you're doing futures planning, you're going to be checking in with them on, you know, what's your current living situation? What would you like your living situation to look like? Might be the same, it might be something different. You know, they're transitioning, maybe they want to move out on their own, maybe they want to get an apartment with friends, maybe they want to move in with Uncle John, whatever that looks like. And then all the way around, that's what you're doing. So educational opportunity, where am I at now? I'm a freshman at Sitka High. What is your educational goal? It could be, I want to graduate. It could be, I want to graduate, and sometimes there's an and, sometimes the next goal is just graduation. It just depends on the youth and where they're at. And so then looking at what steps to take to achieve that. You know, for some youth, it's, okay, we need to see how you can show up to work up to school on time, right? Well, you wouldn't just start that. You'd ask them, look, Libby, how could you graduate if that's your goal? You know, and Libby might say, well, truthfully, you're not passing. Keep missing school.
That's
Sure.
what I say, it could even be, I'm gonna make it through my freshman year.
It could be.
And it could be short term.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's their goal, and they'll let you know where they're at.
What if their goal is to drop out?
Then you look at that. You provide education around that. You know what I mean? You look at, there might be some, we talk a little bit about in futures planning too, players, like, so say they're in DDJ custody or something like that, they're not gonna let them just drop out, right? But you would still look at that. You can't just say, well, you can't do that. You would say, figure out why. What are those pieces that are causing them to want to drop out? Start there. Engage it. Go in the engagement pieces. And then provide education. We do that a lot. We actually have youth talked about those kind of things at the Family Resource Center all the time. You know, I don't want to go to school and I want to drop out. Well, listen to them. Try to figure out what those reasonings are. And then what we're actually going to go into today is rationales. And we're going to provide some rationales of not to convince them to go to school, but to outline some of the likely outcomes of that decision so that they can then look at and make those decisions. Because they're going to make it one way or another.
I was just going to say that, you know, if and when you're doing the futures planning, their education is, I'm going to drop out, but their career goal might be, I want to be, or whatever. And so then, you know, looking at, okay, let's look into what does it take, you know.
Yeah.
The best example, but you know what I mean, there might be a goal that they have in a different domain that they'll realize that, you know, they're meant.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of pieces that connect it to it. I think when we get into rationales, it'll show some of that as well. We get into SOTAs today, it'll show some of those things as well. I think the key point though is when you're doing it's the trickiest part about doing futures planning, it's really ourselves. Because you're gonna hear those things. Like, I want to drop out. You know, you're going to hear those things like, I don't know, the things that I want to be a rock star, right? All these things that we're like, come on, man, like, really, you need to focus right here, right now. Don't you understand what situation you're in? And we can't go there. Okay, no, we're going to, if it's high risk, if it's something that we know is more than likely not going to be a positive outcome for them, we're going to explore that. We're going to provide education around that, you know? I've had a youth one time, I was having a hard time staying in her class, and I asked, you know, what she feels like she would like to do. Like, you know, I don't know if she wanted to, I don't know, there's a lot of options here. She goes, well, I really just want to hit my teacher. Just like, I want to go full on and deck her out. I said, okay, that's an option. Okay, what other options do we have? Not flinch, not, oh my gosh, you can't hit your teacher. I really hope she doesn't hit her teacher, and we'll talk about some of the likely outcomes. But am I going to stop her from hitting her teacher just because I said don't hit your teacher? I'm more than likely to stop her from ever talking to me again, right? But I can provide the rationale of, you know, I'm not going to get into it because I'm about to teach it. But anyway, you can provide the rationale along that of what the most likely outcome is on that. So everything is focused around here. So it's like, especially for the clinicians, I think in the documentation training, it talks a lot about when we're writing the treatment plans, writing them towards, you'll have this information in the treatment plan. You know, that maybe they're going to, trying to think of an example, John's been writing already, so he might help me out. Trying to put it in the treatment language, but, treatment plan language. Let's say they're working on anger management. So, maybe meeting with their clinician to talk about the, whatever process that clinician's working with them on to improve personal effectiveness and well-being, or to maybe obtain a certain job that they're trying to get, that their anger management is in between, that kind of stuff. So you're going to start seeing this in there. And we can get more specific. That's a very specific training. My point in saying that is that this is important because these are the areas that they're going to, we're focusing on their transitional aging. Any other questions on that slide in particular, the transition domains? Like I said, this is a whole other training, just trying to hit it as an eye. This is just an example of one of the youth had taken the different transition domains and for him, so employment, he wanted to be a cook, right? Right here in the middle, this is his personal effectiveness and well-being. This is his community life functioning, with people talking here. Right here. Education, and so, oh no, that's his living situation. He wanted to have a house. So it's just, this is just an example of the youth taking it and making it personal and turning these different transition needs into something personal. This is part of it. Or on the side of it. System. Here we are. Here are all the components. We have strengths discovery and needs assessment, which was in our last training. Futures planning, again, was in our last training. What we're going to do today is rationale. Let's talk about rationales. We're going to talk about in vivo teaching and the SOTUS process, social problem solving. And then in June, we'll be doing preventions planning for high-risk behaviors and situations. It's called What's Up. It's the acronym for it. Because everything needs an acronym. And mediation with young people and other key players, which is SCORA. So these are the different competencies for TIP. So these are what we're going to be working on. We'll be providing the information for, as well as follow-up to practice these different skills. And they all just go together. That's the thing, like especially strengths discovery. Strengths discovery is throughout the whole thing. Futures planning, rationales, in vivo teaching, and SOTUS. Those things just flow all the time. And then there are certain situations you'll use What's Up in and SCORA in. But we will be doing more, once we get it all put together, we'll be doing more. This is what it'll look specifically like at the Family Resource Center. This is what it'll look specifically like in the Community Mental Health Program. Here's what it'll look like at the Hanson House, so that it's a lot, connect very solidly to your day-to-day work. So here's why. And honestly, guys, most of you guys know me pretty well, but I don't like doing things that don't work. It drives me absolutely crazy to do things that don't work. This is why I'm really big about the TIP program. Not only is it statistically shown to work, but I have seen it work over and over and over and over again with the youth that we have worked with. And so we see the blue part are the same youth that are experiencing that emotional behavior disturbance after they've had TIP involvement. So from that 58% of dropouts, we drop all the way down to 13% dropout rate. And so for 45%, we go all the way up to 67% of the youth that have they get employment. Post-secondary, move up to 47. Individual living, those living out on their own, move up to 40%, and the rest rates go down to 7%. So it works. It really works. And that's why that's why the state's going this direction, that's why we're going this direction, is because it really works with the transitional age youth. The youth that were in our TLP program, we did futures planning with it. We didn't know the terminology at the time, but it's the exact same thing. In fact, we're using the same form we used to use. And they would come and we plan for their future. We do all the domains are there, we're doing this. And that and our homes, those two components, are the reason why we had such a high success rate of our youth being able to transition out into independence. They're either living on their own, or they identified roommates, or they identified family they could live with. Majority, not all, but majority of them have jobs that they're holding down. You know, we have a couple that were, one that came back and he's managing some screen printing shop up in Anchorage, right? Anchorage? And going into the military, yeah. And these are all goals that were on their plans. I mean, we might have changed it a few times before we got there, but by the time, you know, when these were things that were very solid that they wanted to do, and they're doing them. And so, looking at these numbers, what does it look like for you guys, and what it stands out to you guys?
So a lot of them are higher than the general population.
Yeah.
So,
Well, for arrested, it's actually lower than the general population.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's in a positive way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Both of them.
definitely.
Look at the significant one on the dropout rate from 58 to 15.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's, when school is not just school, it's attached to something that you want to obtain in the future, it makes a lot more sense to go. You know, I don't know if you guys are ever that way, but when I was a kid, I'm like, Mom, because I was homeschooled, so I was like, Mom, why are you making me do algebra? What am I ever going to use this for? Right? Now I wish I had remembered some of that stuff when I'm trying to help my husband build a thing too. How does all that go? I don't know. So I married a guy who did.
I guess when I first looked at this, I was like, wow, that's pretty staggering. But then I was thinking about how it's based on the TIP program exiters, and it just makes me think about, well, how many of those had tried the TIP program and was like, I'm gonna blow out of here, and you guys are
Mm-hmm.
tell,
That's
So
a good question.
I just wonder if those numbers would kind of go down if it wasn't just the people who were successful throughout.
Who completed it?
Yeah.
Who completed it? And it would be interesting to see how many exited the program beforehand, because I'm sure that happened. It might be a good question that I can send back to the
That
trainers.
would
and
be
ask them.
excellent to know.
Absolutely. Because it is one of those things, you need to be engaged in it or it doesn't work. But that's why we have the strengths discovery and talk about how to really engage the youth.
What, I know we talked about it, before, like, the numbers for our agency specifically, it was like 99% or something of them who were able to get out on their own or in whatever situations they wanted to be in.
Yeah.
Do
That's
you
true, we do
know
have the
what I'm
agency
talking
statistic,
about?
yeah, we have it was 50.
It was 50, in the transitional living program, we, in the past 5 years, we ended up placing 52 youth in that program. And all but 2 transitioned out of our program in a safe living environment.
And those two are the two you were talking about, that they didn't really get, they were like, within a little bit, like, forget this.
Right. And again, and that alone, that statistic alone, and, we as an agency have been providing that, has been, huge. It's amazing that we were also nationally recognized in that program of providing best practice. So, it's not just, so yeah, you have youth that you're gonna work with that aren't bought into it, they're not ready, and that's okay. But how many, and Jessica, maybe I'll talk about, how many said, no way, I'm not ready for this, but then came back and said, you know what, maybe we should talk about, futures planning, or maybe I do need to, I'm ready now. And there was, a few of those
Yeah.
as well.
It happens often, especially in the Family Resource Center, because in the transitional living, we were still connected to them, even if they walked out of our office and didn't want to do futures planning. We were still connected to them. And in the drop-in center, as soon as they don't want to deal with you, they don't ever have to show up again. I mean, they literally don't have to deal with us. And there's not any other real, sometimes schools shoot them back that direction or something like that, but it's really on their own. And so I think of, even just last week as an example, was it 3 youth that came in to ask about futures plan, or was it two? I know, I
There
didn't
was
specifically,
3 that we actually accepted the plans and we're doing it.
and they're doing it, yeah. And they came to us and asked for us to do futures planning with them. And these are the same youth that we've been working with for quite a long time, and there are times that we're actually sitting in our office going, what are we gonna do with this person? I mean, like, really, they come and they just hang out and they're not really engaging, and as much as we're trying to engage with them, they're really not engaging, and should we put some kind of boundary around this? Because I'm spending, we're actually sitting out there for like 6 hours and going in circles and not getting anywhere. And then they disappear for an entire month. Didn't see hide nor hair of them for an entire month, and so then the conversation was like, oh my gosh, we knew they were doing some high-risk behaviors. You know what I mean? Like, I hope they're okay. We were like reading the paper, hoping that, we weren't going to be reading about them. Yeah, it's when you don't have any other connection to youth, that's what you have to do sometimes. And so then they show up, and one of the first things that they're asking for is that futures planning. Like, oh man, this crazy stuff happened, and I need to get something figured out. That stuff you were talking about, can we talk about doing that? And so I was impressed that they made the appointment and kept them. Sometimes they don't keep the first one, it's the second and third one. So it's really stayed in there and continue to provide that engagement. That's how the end of those conversations always go, is when they come in, we've got to go back in there and work on engagement again. Let's talk about it again. Let's make them feel comfortable so that when they're ready, they'll be there. Okay. So I just want to hit on these here as a review, and then in time, I'm probably going to have to move on a little bit. It's a little interesting timelines today. So the guidelines which you have in your slides for TIP, we're going to engage young people through relationship development, person-centered planning, and a focus on the future. You're going to get it over again. Focus on the future, youth-centered, focus on the future. We're going to tailor our services and supports to be accessible, coordinated, appealing, non-stigmatizing, and development appropriate, and building on strengths to enable the young person to pursue their goals across relevant domains. We're going to acknowledge and develop personal choice and social responsibility with young people, and we're going to ensure a safety net of support by involving the young person's parents, family, other informal players, and formal players. So on the first 4, what sticks out to you guys?
The tailoring services and supports, I think, is really huge because there's no 2 cases that are ever alike. You can have one conversation with one kid and having that same conversation with another kid is completely off the table. So that is really, really important.
Absolutely. I think that, and this is really where the TIP process, that's why it's not this formalized. What I mean by formalized is it's not this step 1, step 2, like really structured piece. It's because it's got to be able to adjust and be tailored to the youth. But it's not just an accident, that's something we're going to do an accident either. Let's get one more, another thought about these first 4. Jeff.
I just think that acknowledging and developing personal choice is really huge for the particular age group we're focusing on. It's a big one for the Hanson House. We definitely have rules, but then we always let kids know it's your choice whether you're going to follow them or not. Because we're not going to make any of these kids do anything, and the harder we try, the further away they're going to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great point. I really appreciate that about the Hanson House. When I first came to the Advocacy and I heard that was the model you guys were using, or we were using, in our residential. That was, I'm just talking personally, that's one of the reasons why I was like, man, these guys, now us, have it together. We're not going to just try to force a youth to keep doing something because we've learned that we can't do that. Let's walk beside them and develop those personal choices. That development of personal choice will last long after we have any involvement in the youth's life, because they'll know they can make choices. So the next 3, enhance a young person's competencies to assist them in achieving self-sufficiency and confidence, maintain an outcome focus in the TIP system at a young person, program, and community level, involve young people, parents, and other community partners in the TIP system at the practice, program, and community levels. Especially those last 2, it's the TIP system as a whole. They really, like on the They're different boards and they're different committees, they're always having youth saying, hey, this is how we can improve the tip system. You know, here's what works, here's what doesn't work, here's how, you know, the improvement piece. Also, the community partners also have that same input on the development of this program and as it moves forward from there. So those are the guidelines. I actually have a printout that I set on my desk and I try to look at least once a week to remind myself that this is what we're trying to do. So when I'm out there working with youth, I'm reminding that instead of, you know, normally the way this youth, I think of intake sometimes, touchy when a job that you, but I'm going to do it anyways. Anyways, think of intake sometimes, you know, our normal intake process, which we should use like 99% of the time, it goes to Holly now, she works with them, and then, you know, the case managers. What I'm trying to say is what is prescribed or what is recommended, the program that's recommended, the youth goes to that program. Sometimes when we're working with youth like the other week, we have a youth come in an intake that Roxy and I have been working with for months, maybe close to a year, not quite, but close. He's wanted services, his mom hasn't really supported him and is getting it set up. She said she wanted him to have services, but actually filled out the paperwork. Long story short, turns 18, and now where we could have just been very rigid, okay, young man, you need to go talk to Holly, and you need to fill out the paperwork with Holly, and he didn't feel comfortable with that. We then brought Holly down. Well, Roxy helped him fill out some of the paperwork, and then we brought Holly down to him. This is a little example, but my point is that we're not going to get stuck in a rigid, and I don't think youth advocates does that really very much, but we're not going to get stuck in just a rigid thing. We're going to tailor some of our services. And so having these competencies, that's my whole point here, in the forefront of your brain, okay, is really important. So I'd encourage you to keep your hand out, look it over, somehow get it in there so it's not just something that we talked about here today and then move on.